it's Delancey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up while also multitasking a little bit. I came back from a trip about a week ago, and as you can see, I have still yet to unpack. So I'm gonna stay a little productive today, get some folding done, and talk about all of the books I read last month. So October, I feel like, was a pretty successful reading month. Not because I read more books than I did in September, because I didn't. I read a total of 4 books. I was able to actually sit down and read some physical books last month, which was nice because between school and working part-time, I have been relying heavily on audiobooks, which is great, but nothing just kind of beats like sitting down and reading the old-fashioned way. So I was happy, at least at the beginning of October, to have some time, to have a weekend alone where I could sit down and actually get that done. So the first book that I read in October was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This is a YA contemporary dual perspective that follows Penny and Sam. They are in their late teens, early 20s. They are having a lot of personal struggles in their life, but by happen chance, they run into one another, they swap numbers and become each other's quote-unquote emergency contacts. They pretty much just go about their own individual lives, but will text each other back and forth for emotional support, and a friendship blooms, and from there romantic feelings trickle forth, and that's pretty much the whole story. Apparently there was a lot of hype around this book when it first came out. I did not know about that. I picked up this book because it was on the shelf and was available at the library, and I had heard of the book before and had always been kind of interested. So I had no expectations, I had no hype motivating me to read it, and I think in the end that really helped create a more enjoyable experience, because I think a lot of people went into this book having high expectations and were very hyped and were disappointed, and I think that's why there are such mixed reviews. When I first finished it, I gave the book a 4 out of 5 stars. Now that I step back and review my notes and kind of look at the book as a whole, I think I would probably put my rating more so at a 3 to 3.5 star rating. Right off the bat, the first thing I noticed about this book was that the writing style was a little different and kind of tricky to follow at first. The sentence structure can be very weird, and it would often take me out of the story because I would have to reread sentences, and I don't know, the writing style was just odd at first. Some positives though, I think the pacing of the book overall is really great. I also think that Penny and Sam's relationship is very healthy. I think that they make a great pair, and character-wise, I really liked Sam as a male protagonist. I thought he was very interesting to read about. I liked his subplots. And then there's Penny, who I think was the root of where I had the most issues with this book, and I think a lot of other readers feel the same way. Penny walked a very fine line between being a very flawed character and being just a straight up unlikable character. With all of that being said, when it comes to just my experience as a reader, overall it was just a very enjoyable experience. So I stand firmly by my 3 to 3.5 star rating, and yeah, I get why people don't like it, but I have no regrets. The second book that I read for the month of October was What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This book I completely picked up on a whim. I literally just perused the library stacks and picked up whichever cover was most appealing to me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This is another YA contemporary dual perspective. The story starts with a girl named Kit. She is a popular girl in her high school, but she experiences the very sudden, tragic death of her father in a freak car accident. And of course she is struggling with the grief, and she finds it very hard to just return back to her normal life, be around her friends, and pretend like nothing happened. So she seeks comfort by sitting at an empty table during lunch next to this guy named David. And David is well known in the school for being very smart. He's a genius when it comes to math and physics, but he's really a loner and he's very socially isolated, so it's kind of an unexpected pairing. Kit enlists the help of David to get more answers into how the car accident happened. Was there any chance that her dad could have survived the crash, so on and so forth. The premise of this book is unique, and the plot twist I did not expect at all. It has a really great plot twist. One of the big catchphrases or slogans of this book is, or themes I guess you could say, is that opposites attract, and I feel like the author did a really great job of sticking to that theme. You bounce back and forth between Kit and David's perspectives, and I felt like you were really reading about two distinctly different people. You have Kit's chapters, which are very emotional and definitely heart-wrenching at times, and then you have David's chapters, which are rooted in logic. They're very, for lack of a better word, sterile and very black and white, while, you know, Kit is all gray. The two narrators who handled the audiobook did a really great job at, once again, reinforcing that dichotomy. I also think that the way Julie Buxbaum addressed grief and coping with the loss of a parent, I think she handled that so well, and I truly felt like I could understand and wrap my head around all of the emotions and thoughts that Kit was feeling. It allowed me to gain insight, if only a fraction of what it truly feels like to experience something like as devastating as losing a parent. I actually read one of her books, another one of her books, this month, and in the author's note I actually learned that Julie Buxbaum at a young age lost one of her parents. So I just think it's really cool that a very large part of who she is, or of her life story, is interwoven into these characters and into the stories. I would definitely recommend it. 4 out of 5 stars. The third book I read was These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This is another YA urban fantasy. I heard about this book via Allie, the hardback hoarder. She had it on her October TBR. I wanted like a Halloween-y kind of read. I went on a road trip to LA, not this road trip, but another road trip to LA, and I listened to this audiobook. I read the book entirely via audiobook to and from driving to Los Angeles. The audiobook is really great. I think the narrator's voice is perfect for the main character. I gave this book a 3 to 3.5, more so like a 3 out of 5 stars. This book definitely delivers on the witchy vibes. There are so many different types of witches throughout this book. There are elemental witches, there are casters, there are blood witches, there are also Wiccans and witch hunters, plus, and I think this was a very big selling point for a lot of readers, there is fantastic LGBTQ representation in this book. So it's the story of this girl. She's a witch, and she starts noticing some odd things happening around her town, and she teams up with her ex-girlfriend to get to the bottom of what's going on. She has her suspicions, and she thinks that there actually might be some blood magic afoot and that there's a blood witch in their town. Kind of a mystery, but like I said, it's also a lot of high school drama. I think a lot of people really enjoyed this book. I think a lot of people really connected with it, so I will say that, but I don't know, for some reason I couldn't really immerse myself into the world. I didn't feel very connected to the characters, and maybe that's just because I listened to it in an audiobook form, who knows. It was a great story to listen to and keep me distracted during my car ride, but it wasn't gripping enough that I'm like itching to pick up the second book when it comes out next year, you know? I stand by my rating, a 3 out of 5 stars, but like I said, if it sounds appealing to you, I say go for it, because I think a lot of people really enjoyed this book. And the final book that I read for the month of October was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stewart Turton. This book was amazing. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is the best mystery book that I have ever read, and I'll be brutally honest, I have not read a lot of mystery books, but trust me, like, this book is wild. This is like Agatha Christie meets Groundhog Day. So there's this guy who is, we don't know how or why he got here, but he is basically set on this challenge to figure out who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. And he has 8 days, I believe, to figure it out. But each day he wakes up in the body of a new host, a new person who is at the scene the day that Evelyn Hardcastle dies. So each day he is reliving the same day, but from the perspective of a different party guest, if that makes sense. He has 8 days to figure it out, and if by the end of the cycle he is unable to provide an answer, or the correct answer as to who killed Evelyn, his entire memory is wiped and he starts all over again and gets another try at it. At the same time, there are other people that are in this loop that he doesn't know about that are competing against him as well to figure out the answer. The narrator for this audiobook is superb. Loved the audiobook, though I would recommend, if you're going to listen to the audiobook, also have the physical book with you as well, and maybe start off reading the physical book and then work your way into the audiobook, or, you know, go back and forth between the two, because it's a murder mystery kind of like party game. It's like Clue, you know, so there are a ton of characters, all of the details matter, and it can get really confusing. The one reason I can think of that people may really not like this book is that you will not know what's going on. There's just not enough breadcrumbs, there's not enough hinting for you to figure everything out, and that's part of the fun of this book. But I feel like if you're somebody who wants to know and likes to be in control, you may not enjoy this experience. It's a very diverse, fascinating cast of characters, and I love how each one of the hosts that the protagonist inhabits has a very unique set of skills that helps him to further his investigation in the mystery. This book is a huge page turner. It's awesome, and I think it's great to read at night under the covers with like warm tea. Wonderful book. It's just so unique, and I've never read anything quite like it. Okay, you guys, that is going to do it for my October wrap up. Comment down below how many books you read this month, if you've read any of the books that I mentioned today, and what your thoughts were on them. I'm gonna get back to cleaning my room, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!